Hello everyone, welcome to Names and Attributes of God series. Today let's learn about our God El Roi. And the meaning of El Roi is God who sees. It is always comforting to know that God is always looking at us, always watching over us. So let's learn predominantly three things about this name. Firstly, who first called God as God who sees? Secondly, how can we find comfort in Him when we can't see Him? And thirdly, what should we do when we realize He is watching us? So the first one, who first called God as God who sees? Well, it was Hagar who first called God as El Roi, and we can find this in Genesis chapter 16. When Hagar was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress Sarah. Sarah goes and complains to Abraham, saying, "You are responsible for this wrong I am suffering." She started despising, etc., etc. Then Abraham said, "Your slave is in your hand, do with her whatever you think is the best." So Sarai started mistreating Hagar, and so Hagar fled from her. That is when the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert, and the angel said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?" Then she said, "I am running away from my mistress Sarai." Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be numerous to count." That is when Hagar said these words, "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." We can see this in 13th verse of chapter 16. One thing we need to notice here is God did not say that I am the one who is seeing you, but Hagar acknowledged, saying she saw the God who is seeing her. Let's look at another situation from the Bible where God took notice of. This is also in Genesis, and it's about the life of Leah. Jacob loved Rachel more and hated Leah. We can see this in Genesis 29:31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, He enabled her to conceive. God saw the affliction of Leah and changed her situation. Today God wants to change our situation as well. But are we able to see the eyes of the one who is seeing us? Are we able to notice and allow God to make changes in our lives so that He can do wonders in our lives? Do we really surrender our lives completely to God? Or are there any areas wherein we don't want even God to see those and simply avoid God by not allowing Him to intervene in those areas? Like some hidden sin or some secret lifestyle. It's important for us to take time and introspect ourselves. Let's look at the second point. How can we find comfort in Him when we can't see Him working? I would like to share a small yet well-known illustration called the refiner's fire. Before we move to and understand the second point, based on Malachi chapter 3 verse 3, which says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." The story is of a group of women that met for Bible study. While studying in the Bible, they came across the book of Malachi chapter 3. They were reading verse 3, which says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." This verse puzzled the women, and they wondered how this statement applied to the character and nature of God. One of the women offered to find out more about the process of refining silver and to get back to the group at their next Bible study. The following week, the women called up a silversmith and made an appointment to watch him while he is working. She didn't mention anything about the reason for her interest beyond her curiosity about the process of refining silver. As she watched the silversmith work, he held a piece of silver over the fire and let it heat up. He explained that in refining silver, one need to hold the silver in the middle of the fire where the flames are the hottest as to burn away all the impurities. The women thought about God holding us in such a hot spot. Then she thought again about the verse that He sits as a refiner and purifier of silver. She asked the silversmith if it was true that he had to sit there in front of the fire the entire time the silver was being purified. The man answered yes. He not only had to sit there holding the silver, but he had to keep his eyes on the silver the entire time it was in the fire. If the silver was left even a moment too long in the flames, it would be destroyed. The woman was silent for a moment. Then she asked the silversmith, "How do you know when the silver is fully refined?" He smiled at her and answered, "Oh, that's easy. When I see my image in it." God is working out His image in us. For that, He allows some twists and tweaks, and He mends us, He molds us, but it is to bring out His own image in us and for His glory. Sometimes God disciplines us, He takes us through difficult circumstances, but His eyes are always on us. But the reason why He allows all these is that He can see His own image in us. That's why even if we have to undergo the most difficult phase in our lives, we should never leave the hand of God. We should never blame God, but choose to walk with God, because He takes us in that path as per His plan and purpose. We should trust Him. We should show immense faith in Him. Yes, it's difficult, but we need to recollect all the goodness of God and find comfort. Now let's look at the last point. What should we do when we realize He is watching us? Dear brothers and sisters, while the phrase "God sees me," "God is watching over me" comforts us, we should also be careful not to sin, because God is watching us not just for a moment, but every moment of our lives. So let's be careful not to sin even if no one is watching us, because God keeps watching us. And in conclusion, my dear ones, are we able to realize that God's eyes are always on us? Are we confident that we are never out of His sight? We have a very familiar verse in Psalm 121 which says, He watches over us. He watches over our coming and going. Then why do we even need to worry about anything? He is always watching over us. Let's find comfort in Him. Let's look up to the Lord who is looking after us and worship Him with this name, El Roi, and magnify His name alone. May God add His blessings to this word. Thank you for watching.